Welcome back to the program. This is going to be one of those shows that you will never forget, because I have been warning and I have been saying for the longest time that President Trump needs to designate the Democratic Socialists of America as a bona fide terrorist organization. And he needs to take them down like he would take down any narco-terrorist group, organization like Antifa or many of these other groups out there. They are a national security threat. They are not a political organization that just has different points of view. What I'm about to share with you, I hope and pray, will make all of you shiver to your core, number one. And number two, get our act together and make sure, by God, make sure we win these midterms and we win in 2028. Because I'm telling you right now, we are heading towards a shooting war. That's correct. You heard that correctly. I am not over dramatizing here. I am being as honest and as straightforward as I possibly can, as I have been the entire 14 years plus of my career. And when I give a warning, you know from experience that I'm correct. Listen to this. The Democratic Socialists of America are now wanting to change the entire country if, God forbid, they get into power. Listen to some of the things that they have just discussed in their organization. Now remember, these are people that supported Zoran the Moron Mandani and got him elected. This is the group that got AOC elected. This is the group that was behind and is behind and could possibly still win if they steal it, Nithya Raman in Los Angeles. This is the one that the group behind the person who just won the new mayor primary in Washington, D.C., that President Trump said he was going to federalize and take over to stop. The Democratic Socialists of America make Antifa look like fucking child's play, okay? That's the reality. They make ISIS, Al-Qaeda, all those groups look like pussies, all right? They are that dangerous. And you know why they're that dangerous? Because they're right here at home. Listen to this. The Democratic Socialists of America is behind the campaigns, of course, of New York Mayor Mandani, Nithya Raman, Graham Plattner, can't forget that scumbag, AOC, and many others. These people are complete radicals, and they are winning elections in our country, and they have to be taken seriously. In addition to recently creating their own paramilitary group called the Red Rabbits. What did Obama say many years ago? We are going to fundamentally transform America. And then he said, we are going to have a civilian force just as powerful or more powerful than our own military. These people are radical communists. They are not Democrats. And they want to take over this country. And we're going to get into a lot more details here. The DSA has adopted an official platform that must be seen and heard to be believed. They want to remake the United States of America in their own image, which means completely destroying every single fabric of what our country was founded upon. Earlier this month, the Democratic Socialists of America and their top leadership met for an in-person meeting on their national political committee the DSA's governing authority. The result of the meeting was workers deserve more. See, this is how the left uses language. They make it sound like they're for the workers. They make it sound like they're for the regular people. But they're Adolf Hitler, basically, of today. Because that's how Adolf Hitler got into power. He basically told the peasants and the unions and everything else that he was going to help them and he was going to give them free this and free that. And they voted for him. And then we know what happened. 6 million Jews and another 7 million other people were murdered in concentration camps. Okay? Do not let history repeat itself. The document, listen, commits the Democratic Socialists of America to scrapping the U.S. Senate, abolishing all forces of the capitalist state, defunding and shutting down the Department of War, amnesty for all immigrants, no matter what their situation is, whether they have crimes or not, doesn't matter, and replacing the President of the United States and the United States Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. As more and more members seek election to local and national positions, the platform represents a clear statement of the DSA's views. Its radicalism, therefore, gives a glimpse into how the equivalent of the DSA's board of directors, some of whom have appeared to pretend to be moderate, actually think about our politics. Workers Deserve More emerged from another DSA committee that spent 2 months grappling with and debating its language. When the MPC took up the document, its presenter urged the DSA to pass it unamended after it cleared the committee unanimously. Instead, DSA leadership added 4 amendments, one on, quote, real democracy, calling for the replacement of the President of the United States and the Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress, another on policy, police, and prisons, including abolition of prisons, a provision explicitly naming Jerusalem as the capital of the new country of Palestine, and a ranked choice voting system throughout the entire United States. The MPC passed 2 of these 4 amendments unanimously, while the real democracy provision prevailed by a razor-thin margin. It aims to, quote, win the battle for democracy, which we're not a democracy, draft a new constitution, an entirely new constitution, and create a democratic socialist republic. They want to turn America into fucking China, into Venezuela. They want to turn it into Cuba. They want to turn it into North Korea. And these subhuman animals want to rule over us. Okay? So when I say, and when I said over 6 months ago, if not longer, that the DSA needed to be designated as a terrorist organization, that was not just opinion. That was not just hearsay. That was a fact. And President Trump, he better get his ass together quickly and do this. We need to push for this. This is more important than anything. More important than anything. More important than the SAVE Act. More important than birthright citizenship. More important than the census. This is the most important thing. Because we have to take down these subversive communists inside our borders. And it has to be done immediately. Immediately. Now, how do you know that this is not fringe? How do you know that this is not just some small, minute, radical, extreme element of the entire Democratic Party, and more importantly, the youth, the Gen Zs, and the youth that are eventually going to be older and have grown up in socialism and communism or at least liking it, not here in America, but learning about it, liking it, going to these indoctrination centers, masquerading as public education, and having every fucking teacher and principal and, whatever, counselor talking and showing how wonderful socialism is. They teach socialism in kindergarten, right? Everybody gets one. Don't be rude. You're going to have one and you're going to have one. Share. Everybody gets a, contribution trophy. What are they? Participation trophies. They have been indoctrinating generation after generation after generation in our school system to think that somehow capitalism is evil and socialism and poverty and death and despair and desperation is somehow good. And we have a whole generation fucking brainwashed like this. And if you don't believe me, well, here's our good old buddy. I don't know how this guy is alive. I don't know how this guy is still on CNN, but he is. Here's our good old buddy, Harry Anton, with the latest shocking news from the left. Here it goes.
When we talk about democratic socialists, how are they viewed inside the Democratic Party?
Yeah, you mentioned New York, you mentioned Vermont, obviously. There's the D.C. mayor. We've seen it in Pennsylvania as well. The Democratic Socialists seem to be doing considerably better than they used to be, and they have the chance to knock off, in fact, Democratic incumbents in Congress. And part of the reason for that, why we're seeing these Democratic Socialists having such good chances or outright winning nominations, is take a look here. Net favorability among Dems. Democratic Socialists of America, look at that. A plus 17-point net favorability rating among Democrats. That is actually better. That is better than how congressional Democrats are viewed by Democrats at just plus 4 points. So no wonder that Democratic Socialists have such a good chance, because simply put, they are a better brand at this point than Democrats in Congress.
Among Democrats, it's interesting to see who they like more. All right, and you've used this number before. I always find this fascinating. When you compare socialism to capitalism, how are they doing right now?
Yeah, how are they doing right now among Democrats? You see this Democratic Socialists of America more positive than congressional Democrats. And I'll tell you, take a look at the trend line, that favorable rate.
So socialism in 2010, the favorability rating for Democrats was 50%. Capitalism in 2010 for Democrats was 51%. Now, 2026, favoritism for socialism is 66%. That is just about three quarters of the entire party loves socialism and absolutely despises capitalism, which, by the way, went from 51% in 2010 down to 42% in 2026.
Rating among Democrats on socialism, and look at this. In 2010, they were about equal. 50% had a favorable view of socialism. 51% said the same about capitalism. But capitalism has absolutely fallen through the floor. Look at this. It's now just 42% of Democrats who have a favorable view of capitalism. Socialism, on the other hand, up like a rocket. Look at this. 2 in 3 Democrats have a favorable view of socialism. So socialism is on the rise among Democrats. Capitalism is on the decline among Democrats. And again, this is part of the longer-term trend in which we are seeing Democratic socialists doing considerably better among Democrats, electing a mayor right here in New York City, for example.
And as we said, there are primaries next week with Democratic socialists, self-proclaimed, on the ballot. What are the prediction markets saying about how they may do?
Yeah, this to me is one of the more stunning trends, right, that I have seen in covering politics over the last 15, 16 years. And if you believe the prediction markets, it's not going to just stop suddenly. It may extend into next week, because just take a look at the chance that Democratic Socialists win in Dem primaries, House primaries here in New York. You go to New York 7 district, right? You got a Brooklyn borough president who at this point looks like an underdog compared to a Democratic Socialist. And then you may get a Democratic incumbent in Northern Manhattan get knocked off. That's closer to a 50-50 race. But the bottom line is this. Next week in New York, York may be a very good one for Democratic Socialist Mayor Mamdani, endorsing them. His political star is rising, and he may bring a few Democratic Socialists along with him and put him in a Congress.
So there you have it. Everything I've been saying, validated 100%. The DSA is the most extreme, radical, terrorist organization and threat to the United States right now, more than anything else, more than the IRGC, more than all the terrorist organizations around the world. Why? Because they're here at home, because they're subversive filth, and because they're trying to figure out ways to get into power. And once they get into power, they're going to be like a cancer. And the only way to get rid of that cancer is to pull it out by its fucking roots, if you know what I mean. So, make sure everybody you know sees this video and shares this video everywhere. I am extremely censored because I do things like this. I don't care. I want you to share this everywhere. This is my warning to America, to patriots everywhere. They want to take down this country. They want to replace our Constitution. They want to replace our monetary system. They want to replace our banking system. They want to replace the presidency position. They want to replace the U.S. Supreme Court so that they can put radical, extreme communist judges everywhere that'll do their bidding. And we are going to become subjects. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're going to become subjects if these animals, subhuman animals, are allowed to gain power. Lock and load. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.